If you're listening to this right now, there's someone in your life who drains you. Maybe it's someone you work with. Maybe it's someone you love. Maybe it's someone you thought you could trust, and they used that trust like a weapon. You didn't see it coming. Or maybe you did, and you stayed anyway. I know exactly why you stayed. Because you're not weak. You're not stupid. You're actually someone who feels things deeply, who gives people the benefit of the doubt, who believes, genuinely believes, that if you're just kind enough, patient enough, understanding enough, things will change. And that quality, that's not your flaw. That's your humanity. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Toxic people don't target the cold, the distant, the guarded. They target the warm. They target the ones who care. Because caring people are predictable, and predictability is a lever. And they will pull that lever every single time until there's nothing left of you to pull. You've been operating with a rule book that was never designed to protect you. Everything you were taught about being a good person, be patient, be forgiving, be kind, explain yourself, prove your intentions, keep the peace. Every single one of those instincts becomes a weapon in the hands of someone who has no intention of being fair to you. And what I'm about to tell you, it's not what you expect. Because the answer isn't to become cruel. It's not to become cold. It's not to fight fire with fire. The 7 things I'm going to walk you through today don't require you to raise your voice, lose your dignity, or become someone you're not. In fact, they require almost no words at all. They are silent. And that silence? It is the most powerful thing a toxic person has ever encountered. Because they built their entire strategy around your noise, your reactions, your explanations, your desperate need to be understood. The moment you go quiet in the right ways, their playbook falls apart. Here's what they never taught you. The first silent behavior is emotional non-reactivity. And I need you to understand what this really means, because most people get it completely wrong. Non-reactivity doesn't mean you don't feel anything. It means you stop performing your feelings for people who are using those performances against you. Think about what actually happens when a toxic person provokes you. They say something cutting. They dismiss you in front of others. They twist your words. They go cold for no reason. And what do? You react, you explain, you defend, you get upset, you try harder, you pull back, you reach out again. And the whole time, they're watching, taking notes, learning exactly which buttons to press and how hard to press them to get the exact response they want. Your emotional reaction is not just a response, it's information. It tells them where you're vulnerable. It confirms that they have power over your inner state. And every single time you react, you are handing them a detailed map of exactly how to control you. Here's what stings about this. You've been told your whole life that emotional expression is healthy, that you should communicate your feelings, that bottling things up is bad for you. And in a healthy relationship with a safe person, that's absolutely true. But you're not dealing with a safe person. You're dealing with someone who treats your emotional openness like a buffet. They walk through it, pick what's useful, and weaponize the rest. The Roman historian Tacitus wrote about the Emperor Tiberius, a man who survived decades of court intrigue not because he was the strongest, but because no one could ever read him. His rivals would provoke him, waiting for a flicker of fear or anger that they could exploit. And Tiberius gave them nothing. Not coldness, not hostility, just stillness. And that stillness drove his enemies to ruin because they couldn't calibrate their attacks against a target that didn't move. That's what emotional non-reactivity actually looks like. Not a wall, not numbness, a stillness that cannot be calibrated against you. When someone tries to provoke you and you simply don't perform the reaction they were waiting for, something shifts. You can see it on their face, a flicker of confusion, a recalibration, because the script they were running requires your reaction as the next line. Without it, the whole scene falls apart. Now, this is uncomfortable, I know, because staying calm when someone is being cruel to you feels deeply unnatural. It can even feel like you're letting them get away with it. But you're not letting them get away with anything. You're removing their ammunition while they're still pointing the gun. The second silent behavior builds directly on this, and it's where things start to get really uncomfortable. Setting firm boundaries without over-explaining. You know what most people do when they set a boundary? They write an essay. They build a legal case. They cite evidence, explain their emotional state, reference past incidents, anticipate every counterargument, apologize 3 times in the middle, and then end with a question mark, as if the boundary is a proposal that needs to be approved by the person who's been violating it. And the toxic person? They don't listen to a single word of that explanation. They're not processing your reasoning. They're scanning for the crack, the moment of self-doubt in your voice, the qualifier, I'm not saying you're a bad person, and the moment they find it, they walk straight through it. Here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your limits. Say it again. You do not owe anyone an explanation for your limits. A boundary isn't a negotiation. It isn't a debate. It isn't a request for permission. It's a statement of what you will and will not accept. Full stop. And the more you explain it, the more you signal that it's actually negotiable. That if they just push back hard enough or make you feel guilty enough or question your reasoning well enough, you'll fold. And they know this. They've known it about you for a long time. Guicciardini, the Florentine statesman who was sharper than most and had the scars to prove it, wrote that men judge your strength not by what you say, but by how much pressure you absorb before you move. Every time you over-explain a boundary, you're showing them exactly how much pressure it takes to move you. What does a firm boundary without over-explaining actually sound like? That doesn't work for me. That doesn't work for me because last Tuesday you said this thing and I've been thinking about it and I feel like my needs aren't being considered and I hope you can understand where I'm coming from. That doesn't work for me. I'm not going to discuss this. Not a 10-paragraph explanation of why you're not going to discuss it. I'm not going to discuss this. And then, this is the critical part. You hold it. They push back, they act confused, they act wounded, they escalate. And you don't renegotiate, you don't re-explain, you don't add more words. Silence is your answer. Your stillness is your answer. The discomfort of that silence, that's not yours to fix. Say this with me. My limits need no permission. But here's where it gets worse. Because everything I've told you so far, it only works if you do this next thing right, and most people never do. You've been told that openness is strength, that sharing yourself, being vulnerable, letting people in, that's what builds real connection and trust. And you've believed it. You've lived by it. But I'm going to show you why that belief, with the wrong person, has been quietly destroying you. The third silent behavior is keeping your personal information private, strategic silence. And this is where I need to completely flip what you think you know. Vulnerability is only a bridge when the person on the other side is building toward you too. With a toxic person, it isn't a bridge, it's a blueprint. Everything you share about your fears, your past wounds, your insecurities, your desires, your relationships, your goals, every bit of that becomes material, not for connection, for leverage. Think about what they already know about you. The thing that happened to you as a kid that you mentioned once, the person who hurt you before them, the job you wanted that didn't work out, the fear you have about not being enough. You shared those things in moments of closeness, maybe even moments that felt real. And now those exact things are the tools being used to keep you small, keep you compliant, keep you questioning yourself. This is not an accident. This is a strategy. It may not even be fully conscious, but it is a strategy. Here's the contradiction that should change how you see everything. You thought sharing more would bring you closer, but with a toxic person, every piece of information you share is a stone they're adding to the wall they're building around you. The more they know, The more walls. The more walls, the more trapped. Strategic silence means you stop feeding the architect. This doesn't mean you become cold or deceptive. It means you become selective. You stop narrating your inner life to someone who is using the narration against you. You answer questions without revealing. You engage without exposing. You are present without being an open book. When someone asks you probing questions, and toxic people always ask probing questions, dressed up as concern or curiosity, you're allowed to give a short, pleasant, non-answer. I'm doing well, thanks. I haven't thought much about it. Things are moving along. Nothing hostile, nothing that signals you're protecting yourself. Just a closed door, warm on the outside, locked on the inside. Because here's what privacy actually communicates to a toxic person, whether they understand it consciously or not. It communicates that you cannot be fully read, and a person who cannot be fully read cannot be fully controlled. You become unpredictable, and unpredictability to someone who needs control is deeply unsettling. The fourth silent behavior is where most people completely miss the point, and it might be the most counterintuitive thing in this entire conversation. Walking away from drama and conflict. Now, your first instinct might be, good, that's obvious, just walk away, don't engage. But here's what you've probably been doing instead, and I need you to hear this. You haven't been walking away, you've been retreating, and then coming back, and then retreating, and then getting pulled back in. And that cycle, that push and pull, is not you trying to escape the drama, it's you feeding it. Real disengagement is permanent. It's not a tactic, it's not a move in the game. It's the moment you decide the game itself is beneath you. Here's the contradiction. You've been taught that walking away from conflict is avoidance, that healthy people face things head-on, that you need to resolve things, work through things, have the difficult conversation. And again, with a safe person in a healthy relationship, this is true. But toxic conflict isn't designed to be resolved. It's designed to keep you engaged. Every argument, every blow-up, every dramatic crisis serves one purpose: to keep you in the orbit of someone who feeds on your energy. Resolution is never the goal. Your participation is the goal. Polybius, writing about the strategic failures of Rome's enemies, observed that the greatest trap a general could fall into was fighting on terrain chosen by the opponent. When you engage in toxic conflict, you are always fighting on terrain the other person has chosen, prepared, and booby-trapped. Every word you say is twisted. Every concession is treated as a confession. Every attempt at reason is used to fuel more unreason. Walking away isn't avoidance. Walking away is the refusal to fight on their terrain. It is, in fact, the most powerful strategic move available to you. And here's what they don't tell you. The moment you genuinely disengage, not as a tactic, not hoping they'll chase you, the dynamic collapses because the drama required your investment to survive, your upset, your defense, your attempts at reconciliation. Without those, there's nothing to feed, and what doesn't get fed eventually starves. Stop. Because everything I just said that's only half the picture. Because there's a difference between walking away and disappearing, between disengaging and going invisible. And the second half of this, what you do instead, is where the real power lives. Repeat after me. Their chaos is not my emergency. And now, once you see what comes next, you won't be able to unsee it. Here's what actually works. Here's the part where everything we've built comes together. The fifth silent behavior is observing more than speaking. And I want to be precise about why this is so powerful, because it's not just about staying quiet. Most people, when they're in a room with someone they're uncomfortable with, talk too much. They fill silences, they explain themselves preemptively, they perform confidence or friendliness or calm because the discomfort of being watched and not speaking feels unbearable. Toxic people rely on this. They create environments where you feel compelled to fill the silence. And every word you use to fill it gives them something to work with. But when you shift from participant to observer, when you start watching instead of talking, something remarkable happens. You start seeing things clearly for the first time. You notice the patterns, the inconsistencies, the way their story changed between last week and this week, the way their mood shifts when they want something from you, the way their eyes move when they're calculating. And they start to feel it, that you're watching, that you're not performing for them anymore, that you're seeing something. They don't know exactly what you see, and that uncertainty, it's deeply uncomfortable for someone who is used to being the one doing the watching. There's a reason the most powerful people in any room tend to speak least, not because they have nothing to say, but because they understand that information flows toward the quiet. When you stop broadcasting and start receiving, you collect intelligence that other people are giving away for free. You understand the room in a way that others simply can't because they were too busy talking to notice what was actually happening. Start watching. Watch for consistency between words and actions. Watch how they treat people who can do nothing for them. Watch what happens to their demeanor when they don't get what they want. Watch how quickly their warmth disappears when you stop being useful. You will learn more in 30 minutes of watching than you'd learn in 30 days of conversation. The sixth silent behavior is calmly holding people accountable to facts, not to feelings, not to interpretations, facts. This is a skill that toxic people genuinely fear, and most people never develop it because it requires a kind of emotional discipline that's actually quite hard. When someone lies to you or twists what you said or denies something that happened, your natural response is emotional. You feel indignant, you get loud, you say things like, "How could you say that?" or "You always do this," or "I can't believe you." And the moment you go emotional, they have you. Because now the conversation is about your reaction, not about what they actually did. What if, instead, you simply said, quietly, factually, without heat, "That's not what happened. On Tuesday, you said this. Here's what I wrote down." No anger, no drama, no interpretation, just facts stated with the calm certainty of someone who doesn't need the other person to validate their memory. This is extraordinarily destabilizing to someone who relies on gaslighting, on making you question your own perception of reality. Because gaslighting only works when the target is uncertain. When you come with documentation, with specificity, with a calm that says, "I don't need you to agree with me because I know what happened," you have removed the weapon from their hands. They may escalate. They may get furious that their version of events isn't being accepted. They may try 10 different tactics to make you doubt yourself. And you stay calm. You return again and again to the facts, not the feelings, the facts, not what you think, what actually happened. Calm accountability is one of the most powerful things you can do because it signals something important. It signals that you trust your own perception. And a person who trusts their own perception cannot be easily manipulated because the primary tool of manipulation is the systematic erosion of your trust in yourself. Trust your eyes, trust your memory, write things down if you need to, and state what you know with the quiet certainty of someone who is no longer asking for permission to believe their own experience. The seventh silent behavior is the one that ties everything together, and it's probably the one that has cost you the most: refusing to chase approval or validation. Let me describe something I suspect you know very well: the exhausting cycle of trying to prove yourself to someone who keeps moving the goalposts. You work hard, you go above and beyond, you sacrifice something, and it's acknowledged briefly or not at all, and then immediately a new expectation appears. You're never quite enough, never quite right. There's always something more you should have done, some way you should have been different. And you keep trying, not because you're weak, but because somewhere deep down you still believe that if you just find the right combination, they'll finally see you, finally validate you, finally give you the thing you've been working so hard to earn. I need to say this with all the care I can. That thing is never coming. Not because you're not enough, but because the withholding of validation is not a response to your performance. It's a control mechanism. The moment you receive consistent approval is the moment they lose leverage over you. So the goalposts will always move. The criticism will always find something new to attach to, not because you're failing, but because your need for their approval is the leash, and they're not going to hand you the scissors. The moment you stop chasing it, genuinely stop, not as a tactic but as a decision, everything changes. This is the thing about approval seeking that people don't understand. It's not just emotionally draining, it's an announcement. It broadcasts your dependence. It tells everyone watching that your sense of self is available for rent and that whoever holds the lease has enormous power over you. When you stop seeking approval, when your self-worth stops being a question that other people can answer, you become someone that manipulation simply can't find a foothold on. This isn't arrogance. Arrogance is actually a form of insecurity. It needs other people to confirm its own greatness. This is something quieter and more solid, a kind of settled self-knowledge, the unshakable sense that you know who you are, you know what you stand for, and you don't need a single other person to ratify that. When you operate from that place, toxic people lose their primary entry point because their entire strategy was built on your hunger for their approval. Take away the hunger, and the strategy collapses. You came here today because someone in your life has been feeding on your reactions, your explanations, your vulnerability, your fear of conflict, and your hunger for validation. And you've been fighting that battle with every tool except the most powerful ones available to you. 7 silent behaviors. Not weapons, not manipulations, not games. Just the quiet, unshakable decision to stop being readable, stop being reactive, stop being leveraged. Don't perform your emotions for people who are using them as intelligence. Set your limits without writing a legal brief. Keep your inner life private from those who've proven they can't be trusted with it. Walk off the terrain they've designed for your defeat. Watch more than you speak and let observation become your intelligence. Hold the facts with the calm certainty of someone who trusts their own mind, and stop handing other people the scissors to your leash. If something shifted in you while you were listening to this, if you felt that click of recognition, that moment where something you'd been feeling but couldn't name suddenly had a shape, this isn't meant to stay here. Someone in your life needs to hear this too. Share it with them. And if you want more of this, more of the deep, honest, practical understanding of how power actually works and how to protect yourself from those who abuse it, subscribe, because there's a great deal more you need to know. Power is not loud. It never was. The most dangerous person in any room is the one who needs nothing from you.